I had this excitement, I had this passion, and I just felt like I needed to always voice that opinion. And maybe that's something that I learned along the way in my career, is that, you always want to speak up, but the places that value your voice and when you do speak up and your ideas are the places that you really want to be a part of, right?
Welcome to That Pivotal Moment of Change, the podcast where we dive into the career-defining moments that shape who we become. Success, setbacks, big decisions, we unpack it all. Let's get into it. Today we're speaking with Rohatgi.
Hey, Roger, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, great to be here with you, Ryan.
Super excited to have this conversation with you today, and I'm going to jump right into it. To start off, can you talk about your background and how you got into design and product work?
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, it's great to be on your podcast, and thank you so much for the invite. You have such an amazing way to put these together, and what you've been doing, and the guests that you've already had. I feel very honored to be a part of. So
I appreciate that. Thank you.
yeah. So I guess my background in design, I don't think I had initially, growing up, thought that design was going to be my thing. But I think when I was younger, obviously with my fascination with, just like most kids with, the rise of video gaming and movies and all the, all the creative things that were happening around us and technology, I was intrigued. I was curious. Right. And I found myself, getting more and more into those creative type aspects of what's behind the scenes, and doing these films with my friends and different things like that, just like, you hear many people do. And so my path to design, quote unquote, like UX design, was a little bit different. I mean, I started back in the late 90s. Back then I had just a passion of being able to do some cool stuff for like all the people in my area and community. And we were, creating like, rave flyers and doing graphic design, and all that kind of stuff, right? When that was a thing. And so graphic design was a really amazing outlet because I could bring a lot of my ideas to life with the early days of Corel Draw and Photoshop and some of these things that you had to actually have a CD for and stuff, and so it was a different time. But that quickly led to web design, and web was the next kind of evolution, and then into the animation and Flash and stuff. So I then moved into user experience where, because of the rise of mobile and more of the applications that were starting to be created and stuff. And so that was an acceleration of design, I think, for the world, but also, in my life. In there, I also had produced a film and wrote a film and produced it, and won an international film award. So I was able to, kind of follow my passion in that, and then pivot into, television as well. And the more and more I got into that world, it was the cross section of TV and digital, which was emerging. And so that took me deeper and deeper into, the design of software and applications and user experiences. And yeah, man, it just kind of evolved till, I was, most recently leading design as the chief design officer of one of the largest energy companies in the world. So
very cool. And we will drill into that a little bit more, but I love the story and a lot of very cool things. You made one film and it won an international award.
Yeah. So it's my first film. I look back and think, man, that could have been so much better. I could have done so many things. If I just had more money or more budget, I could have paid that extra actor to, or actress or whatever. But it ended up changing my life in many ways.
So can you talk about what you're up to today?
I have had an incredible opportunity to be able to start working with companies on the future of the cross-section of human-centered design and AI, which I'm calling human-centered AI, which is there's still a need for good understanding of customer challenges, customer pain points, user needs, and really designing for humans, but now leveraging AI and the agentic opportunities in these new workflows and AI agents that will be involved in that. We still need UX more than ever. As a matter of fact, I've been saying this and I'm going to keep saying it, but UX is not dead. It is actually very important to the future of how we're all going to interact with these agentic systems and these AI agents.
I agree. And I think that's actually really refreshing to hear, because I think one of the first things people think about with AI, and I'm sure even more so with agentic AI, is what does that mean for my job, or what does it mean for other people's jobs? And I know that's been a concern on the UX side of things. So I think that's a really nice perspective that you have.
Yeah, so I think I mean, I was just asked that I mean, I was talking to a very large company about it and advising them on their agentic beginnings, if you will, because it's all brand new in a lot of these companies. And this was literally this week, and they said that, well, what if you come in and we're talking together on this, and people are in the room and saying, hey, well, how is this going to replace my job? What do we say? And I was like, look, I think when you look at the workflows just that people have today, a lot of it is cumbersome. A lot of it is painful. A lot of it is stuff that we all wish that we didn't have to do so that we could do greater things, right? So that we could, tap into or unlock human potential. And if we can do that through AI and make people's lives better and easier in the workflow, then I think that's a win. And if those same people can do more creative things or more strategic things, then it gives them a feeling of greater worth and value as well, of what they can actually go forth with. And so I think there's a view that I have, which I think, Ryan, you and I talked about before, but and I've talked about it other places, but it's called multi-potentiality, where there's people with multiple needs, multiple wants, multiple skills, multiple gifts. If we were to duplicate ourselves for a minute, right, like our digital twin or a clone of ourselves, and that clone can digitally do a myriad of tasks that I don't really need to want to mess with in my daily life, then my life's going to get better. And the more of those that I've trained to do things for my life, it only multiplies my abilities and augments my, all that I can do. And so I think that maybe that the future isn't that it's, going to take every job. Maybe it's going to multiply our abilities to do even greater work at the jobs that we have.
I love that. And it makes a ton of sense. Very cool to hear also the way that you explained it. I like that.
Thanks.
I want to go back and talk about your path a little bit, because I think, one, you've been involved with some incredibly cool things just in the community itself, in the influencing space, but you've also had just a very, I think, interesting path, companies like Motorola and BP. And could you talk a little bit about how that path came to be?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think it's probably a handful. I mean, a combination of multiple things. There's probably a lot of, just right time, right moment, right people, right network, luck, something bigger than myself, and then there's these, the being able to actually have the right ability at the right time. So those kind of things. But when I think about the journey, I kind of, if I rewind and go back to kind of some pivotal times in my career, I think. After I kind of had done the film, I remember, going deeper into my own agency and leading design at different, in different ways for different, clients. And I quickly got snatched up to be the creative director of 2 national television networks. And when I got there, it was an environment that was pretty set on, this is what the network's going to do, and what, but we need you to rebrand the look and feel and all these kind of things and lead the creative direction. But when I started looking deeper and deeper into the possibilities of that, potential in those networks, I realized, oh my gosh, wait a minute, hold on. We could be doing something way more exciting and creative to capture people and engage with customers, because it's such a lean back experience. So how do you cut through the noise? How do you do any of that stuff? And so I had this idea. I thought it was a good idea, but looking back, I mean, it's a crazy idea, right? Because I said, I'm going to go into the CEO's office. I've only been here a month or two or something, and I'm going to go and tell him my idea that is going to be a complete 180 or a complete shift in his company. And so he's either going to, kick me out, fire me on the spot, or just tell me to go back and put my head down and just deliver what, they had hired me to do. He had hired me to do. So I I went into his office, and it was a very eccentric type office. Imagine like dark, wood floors, Asian wood floors, with like this white, like leather Natuzzi couch with like this big view out, these big tall windows, glass windows, and purple accent walls with other walls that had the same wallpaper from CeeLo Green that he got, which was all black with silver revolvers.
I'm like this. I'm visualizing it.
Silver revolvers, like these guns all over the wallpaper, and it's like super high end with this, shag silver carpet, gray carpet thing. So anyway, so it was like a really, like it was a super startup kind of feel, right? And he had done some stuff where he had done some .com work and stuff, and sold and made a lot of money off that stuff. So he was definitely in the social network type arena, kind of before Facebook had taken off and stuff, and even before MySpace, if you remember that.
Oh yeah.
So I came to him and I said, hey, look, given your background and all the technology that you have and the stuff you have access to, what if we were to take that and combine it with TV and call it social TV, where people could be on TV at any time and they can interact with television, it would be a lean forward experience instead of just a lean back experience, right? And the moment of truth where I thought, he's going to kick me out of the office, he did the opposite. He said, hey, man, I love that idea. That's crazy. Let's go do it. Within the next year, we built the first and launched the first social television network in the United States. We partnered with Mark Burnett, who created Survivor and The Voice. And we built out these sets. I worked with David Weller, who, built the set for Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and Oprah and all these different shows and stuff. And so it was a crazy thing to be able to build the sets out in LA and to film all this stuff and get it ready. And then to start combining social and mobile and, all TV together. It was just unheard of. Nobody had done that. And we created this technology and patented this technology of being able to, do video to TV, text to TV, vote to TV, and then tweet to TV, which was a brand new thing. So we started working with Twitter. So what was interesting is that some of that then, again, this is the first time any of this could happen, because we could curate all this different content and all these different UGC videos that would come in, these user generated videos. And the producers at these shows, from The Real World on MTV to live shows or semi-live, like, CBS The Talk, KTLA News, all these different shows. They could, ask for UGC videos and in the broadcast, and then during the break, they get them, they review them through our producer portal, and then they could literally show that on TV, and you could be on TV, right? And then your tweets could be pulled in and all sorts of kind of stuff. So with with Twitter, so they had just bought Vine. So some of the stuff that we did, I think, ended up going into the app, that was known as Vine, that kind of was a precursor to TikTok today. So that was pretty wild. But the reason why I wanted to start there is because what it taught me a lot about was this idea of, I guess, the hustle, an ever-present hustle mindset, right? And so there it was like, even though it was a company that was established, it still felt like a startup, and there was a lot of startup aspects that we started doing. And so, building teams, building out an agency internally, for all these customers and clients, all of a sudden was a big thing. And then building out, the solution, for all sorts of kind of offerings that we had was a whole nother thing. And so overseeing the design for not only the brand and the creative, and the networks, but also the user experience of everything behind the scenes and for the user was incredible. And I think that really kind of formed the way I would think, for the years to come. And so as I left that place, that was about 6 years or so, we had so many different connections and technology things that we had done with, so many television networks, companies, celebrities, or whatever, that it had prepared me for the rise of the more of the social engagement that we were seeing in the world, that led to deeper, connection to mobile and web and software and so forth. And so I began to lead design at companies. There was one where it had, they had 40 some odd different brands, and that they had bought all these different software applications. And so that the same people that backed that company were the people that backed like HelloFresh and Zenefits and all these different other organizations at the time, and Alibaba. And so that was really cool to be kind of in the middle of like that software and tech and SaaS. And then that, because of that, I think each one of the next plays led me to more and more of the places that you mentioned, right? So which led me to, like, leading design through an agency at Motorola, which we ended up, I ended up leading the creative direction for one of their largest launches in the last, 40 years of their history. They've been around for probably over 100 now, and that landed in, recognition in Fast Company's best user experiences of 2020, and it was really exciting. But that what I got a chance to do there, and with their global team, really prepared me for the scale of what I got to do at BP.
I also want to go back and say the start of that story and social TV. One of the coolest things to me is being new at a company and having an idea that's kind of crazy and out there, and having the courage to walk into your CEO's office and present it. Really cool. I don't think a lot of people would have done that.
Yeah, no, it was. I think I was a little crazy. So maybe that's I had this vision, man. I had this excitement. I had this passion, and I just felt like I needed to always voice that opinion. And maybe that's something that I learned along the way in my career. Is that you always want to speak up, but the places that value your voice, and when you do speak up and your ideas, are the places that you really want to be a part of, right?
So true, 100%. A few other things I want to ask you before we get into the reflective stuff. So one, I mean, you do a lot of great work in the AI space. I know you've been featured in with Harvard. You've been in Wired. Just kind of curious, what was it that got you into AI?
Yeah. So that's a really, really interesting question, because lately I've been so deep in it that I haven't had a chance to look back and say, really what got me into this. But actually, if I go back several years back, I had the opportunity to be a part of a hackathon for a big global innovation CX endeavor with Oracle. And so Oracle had brought us all out to their, Bay Area campus, and, Larry's cool, boat is out in the water there and everything. It was just like, it's a great campus, right? And it's funny, like, you just saw that he was announcing with Sam Altman and SoftBank of the Stargate, right? That's coming, the new AI, alliance for our country. So anyway, so it was interesting because him saying that was what threw me back to like when I began to think about this stuff. So I had this opportunity. They said, hey, look, we want you to take all of Oracle's software and stack, so Oracle Commerce Cloud and their gamification engine and part of their tech stack, and come up with the most innovative CX idea, that you can, or whatever. So I remember, like, we were racking our brains for all this stuff, and I was at a hotel, and and it just hit me like, wait a minute. I said, what if we could take all of this technology, but do something different? And people are like, wait, what are you talking about? And I said, well, look, the chances of us winning is, it's going to be tough. So what if we didn't focus on that? What if we focused on actually using this technology to do something good instead, and see what comes out of that? And they're like, well, what are you thinking? And I said, well, look, my son is autistic, my oldest, and he's a remarkable kid. He's amazing, but he struggles with certain areas of his life. And so he has an incredible memory. When he was like 3.5, he had memorized every book he'd ever heard read to him, every song he'd ever heard, and every movie he'd ever seen, verbatim. And he could count forward and backwards in English, Japanese, Spanish, French.
Wow.
And he knew so many just amazing facts, but sometimes he would not remember your name, although you have been seeing him every day, or he wouldn't remember that he needed to have another shoe on, all these different things, right? And so I thought, well, what if we could create an application that would be able to augment somebody's memory and help remind them wherever they are, and then gamify that and incentivize them through earnings and stuff like that. And so we did this. We wired everything together and created this app for him called Remind, that basically allowed him to go through the house, and it would reward him if he took the reminder to brush his teeth, and as he got into proximity location areas. So it would notify him as he moved around different places. It was exciting, and it was, man, this is early, like years ago, right? So being able to see that come to life led me to the combination of a myriad of things, that this could be great for Alzheimer's. It could be great for, not just autistic kids, but other areas, even those that are visually impaired, right? So because it had this audio responses when you went into different rooms or different areas and stuff like that. And then we could geofence and protect children and people like outside of the house on their way to school or whatever, and it would incentivize them. Anyway, so with all of that, we started looking into like could AI, this is before all the stuff that we have today, so it was all theoretical, but could AI begin to hold the memories and make the reminders when it needed to, right? And it would remind you what you needed at the time you needed it, especially for people who can't remember to take their medicine and things like that, right? And now that seems very plausible, but back then it seems ways off. I combined augmented reality with artificial intelligence and called it augmented intelligence back then. And I was really touched and excited that because I thought when we submitted that and I flew to Chicago to present it all on this big stage or whatever. Yeah, I mean, like we were just doing it because we thought it was the right thing to do, and it was a good thing. I think it was another one of those moments, kind of like the movie I mentioned, like that I don't know if I knew that we would win, and so we ended up winning top honors, and again another big moment, life-changing moment there. But it was exciting because I think that was the beginning of my thinking on how AI can begin to help our lives, right? The technology wasn't there yet, and there was this evolution that was happening behind the scenes, right? So actually this year, 2025, marks what I believe is the 70-year anniversary of AI and artificial intelligence, because in 1955, John McCarthy coined the term artificial intelligence at Dartmouth College. And then he opened up the gathering of the leaders that would come together or the people that would come together for artificial intelligence in 1956 at Dartmouth College. And actually in design, that same year, Henry Dreyfuss wrote the book on how to design for people. So you have somebody writing how to design for people, and you have somebody creating how to design for machines, right? And thinking machines, right? Almost. So the artificial intelligence was born. And so 70 years later, there's so much that has evolved, right? And 1955 was just a wild year anyway. I mean, that year, Steve Jobs was born, Bill Gates was born, Tim Berners-Lee, who invented the World Wide Web, was born, Eric Schmidt of Google was born, right? And Einstein died that year. So it was an interesting, dynamic. Anyway, so many things that happened in 1955. I've written some of that out in the world, but and talked about it. But yeah, so the fast forward to what you were saying was that journey of being able to see the potential of what AI could do kept pulling me deeper and deeper and deeper. So at different places, I got a chance to learn more about it or experiment. But at BP, leading design and becoming their first chief design officer and design leader was super exciting. So built that team across the world, and it was pretty wild because we had we were designing for what we thought was about 200,000 interfaces out there in the world and thousands of apps and so many different scenarios. But I could see the value of what AI could do for the process and stuff. And so I got a chance to partner with Fantasy, which is an agency in New York.
I know them.
Amazing group. And Harvard, and they have a new school in Harvard Business School that's called D Cubed, which is Design, Data, and Digital. And they were really fascinated with how AI could impact the the inner workings of a company the size of BP, and they wanted to work together on this. And with Fantasy, the idea came to have an AI design sprint and begin to leverage AI, what we called synthetic humans, clones of our customers, to give us feedback and start doing deeper research. And it was totally game changing for us. And stuff that we could have, spent like a crazy amount of money on over, $1 million+ or whatever, we were able to do for way cheaper and way faster. Stuff that would have taken, anywhere between 4 to 6 months or longer, we did in 2 weeks. And the speed and scale of what we got, and then the insights that we got from the research with synthetic humans and humans was super fascinating. So that led to speaking about that at Harvard's first AI summit and being involved with what I'm doing today. So,
and I love the roots of where it began and kind of how you fell into it. It's very cool.
Well, thank you. And my hopes is that maybe things will come full circle, because I would love to go back to leveraging AI to help, not only kids of autism and, but, all sorts kind of other areas of humanity, right?
Yeah, and I think it can, and I think it will. I do want to move forward here, but I want to say the synthetic users piece is just incredibly interesting to me. It's something I've been keeping a bit of an eye on and excited to see where that goes, especially from, just thinking about being involved with product and what you can learn from both the qual and quant perspective in just a very quick time frame.
Yeah. No, I think, I mean, it's really, evolved since then, right? So that we were doing that in 2023. So the stuff that happened in 2024, I mean, was like a whole nother pivot. And now with agentic AI, synthetic humans can do, all sorts of kind of things autonomously now, right? And act as AI agents, But I think, the biggest pivot was, I think, for us as humanity was, and when we maybe look back on this date, is on November 30th, 2022, which I believe is the day that AI didn't become aware, but the world became aware of AI. And that was the launch of the GPT that we know today, right? So I think there's been, so much that has evolved since even when we began to work on synthetic humans. And what was exciting is that because we did that at that time and documented it with Harvard, it became the first documented AI design sprint and partnership that, and now a case study or becoming a case study in Harvard Business School as one of the first taught there. So it was tremendously rewarding and exciting to be a part of that.
Okay, let's jump into some reflective questions. So what are some key lessons you've learned throughout your career?
The first is to try to write them down when you do learn them, because you'll forget them later and you'll have to relearn them. And that's been so there's a lot that I probably could share, but I didn't take the chance to write it all down. But I think the things that really were key and pivotal for me along the way was that every role that I stepped into and got a chance to be a part of had a lot to do with the network that I had, the relationships that I had, and then the skills from the place prior to that, right? And so that was big. I think that keeping that passion, that boldness, that voice. I remember went to this company and the CTO was interviewing me, and he said, "Why do you want this job?" And I said, "Well, everything that I've done up until this point has prepared me for this moment right now with this job." And I listed off all these things. And every single one of those things is exactly what this job needs. And this job was created specifically for me. And I believe I was created specifically for this job. And so it's not a matter of why do I want this job? It's more of a matter, when do I start? And so that boldness, I thought was like the best approach. And so he never called me back. But I still got the job. I still got the role. And later on, we laughed about that, and he loved it. He left the final answer to somebody else, but that's why he didn't call me back. Because I thought, man, this guy is, he's going to hate me for life. But no, he actually appreciated it and loved it. But not every place you can do that. But again, the point there is, if you have it and you can find it, believe in yourself, that confidence that what you've done is what is needed at the place that they're talking to you about. You are the right fit, and sometimes they may not see it, but you need to know it. That's easier said than done, because the biggest thing I've learned over the years is how much I need to learn, and the biggest thing I know is how much I probably don't know now, and that I need to know. But I never want to stop learning and knowing.
The boldness there, that's impressive.
I can't say I always have that.
What are some of the bigger challenges you faced in your career, and how did you overcome those challenges?
I mean, I think there's so many that can be, at the moment, it seems very big, but when you look back, it might not be as big anymore. I mean, there's moments in companies where you overcome, stakeholder challenges, big position challenges, political challenges, and dealing with the environments and stuff like that. So all those, you can look back and go, man, those were hard. Those are crazy going through it. I mean, it was mentally exhausting and tough. And then when you get through it and you achieve, beyond it, it's great. But those sometimes aren't the things that, you remember later, but it was big in the moment. But I think if I look back, I think maybe, and this is something I learned too, is that, is to keep that hustle heart, right? The heart of hustle, or whatever, or the art of hustle, or whatever you want to call it, right? That hustle mentality, because that just kept me going, keeps me going, right? Even at, a really large company to even in the startup world, right? And because that fortitude that you need to keep going, it has to come from that mentality of it's up to me, right, to make this happen, and the people I know and I can trust in my network. I remember looking back early on in my career when I was, trying to. I was at a job. I was a creative director there, and I could see that there was a lot of areas where it wasn't going to be right for me. And so I made a decision to leave without having another job lined up, which was really crazy because I had a wife and a young son at the time. And yeah, she was freaked out, but I knew that it was the right thing to do. And I was going to try to do my own thing, right? My own agency. So, it was pretty wild because to do it, my wife had to go back to work. She saw the vision, she saw the passion, she saw what could be, but she had been staying home with our son, and so she went back to teach, and I started building this business. I can't remember how long into it. Things were going good. I was picking up clients, things were happening and stuff, but we lost our nanny who would take care of our son during the day, and so I became the nanny and running the business. So I would find myself, I would work till, let's see, so she would come home around 5:30, or so after her job. And, we would have dinner, and I would start working because when she would leave in the morning, or she would get up at 5:30 in the morning, I would take our son. And so I would have him with me all day, and I would be working and spending time with him. But then in the evening when she had him, I would work. So I would work from, like, let's say 7 or 7:30 till 5:30 in the morning. So by the time she was waking up, I was coming into the room to take our son. So I wasn't really sleeping till like like where I would crash and burn like on a Friday or whatever. And so then I worked through the weekends. So that hustle was insane, and it was really, really tough. And I remember I was doing like all sorts of kind of projects that were, because I also have background in animation and After Effects, and music videos to special effects and all that kind of stuff too. So I was doing all this stuff, and it was for little pay, And so my wife kept saying, "Hey, you're not getting paid enough. You're not getting compensated. What your value is." And I said, "Look, I know if I could just do this thing, it will, when people see it, they'll see the value." And it was hard. It was hard to convince people around me that was the way to do it. But yeah, in time, they did. They saw that, and yeah, that's what led me to the next thing. Somebody said, "Hey, look, that was amazing what you did there. Would you come do that over here, which is at a bigger scale or whatever?" So yeah,
the hustle's real, and it definitely pays off. It's also very cool to me that you got to do it in such a way where you did get to spend a lot of time with your son, but you also got to do the hustle outside of that. There's something just kind of special about that.
Yeah, it was a time that I will cherish forever. I mean, we bonded, deeply. Not every dad gets a chance to do that, and sometimes not every mom gets to do that, and or parent. And yeah, it was a wonderful thing. It wasn't easy, but it ended up paying off. And but I never did stop the hustle. It just was a hustle in different ways, right? And the hustle's good, right? So there's something about that hunger, that excitement, that drives us. But I would say, like, I don't think I would have been able to fully make it through and keep hustling if I didn't have people that believed in me. And so there were moments where I didn't think I could make it to my next thing, and somebody would come along in my life that would say, "Hey, no, you're going to." I mean, like, I remember I was working with this one amazing person, and she had a business, and she said, "Look, I want to hire you for my business," whatever. But because I knew her, I was going to give her a discount. She's like, "No, you're going to give me full prices, and you're going to charge me at the highest rates, and you're going to, give me the top amount of hours." And it changed my value of myself and my view of myself. So sometimes it takes other people to believe in you, even in the hustle, right? Even though you believe it yourself.
But there's this through line of, I think, confidence and courage.
Because like when you're going through it, you don't, you're not thinking that you always think you need more courage and you need more, confidence. But you're right. I think that's key, and I think that's the key thing for the right skills for people today, especially like when I looked at a company like I had there, is that I was part of in VP. I was like, you could be the best designer in the world, but if you came in the company, and you didn't know how to have the confidence to be able to work with stakeholders and bring your idea to life. I called it stakeholder X. I mean, your first user experience is your stakeholders. Your second is your developers, right? And then it's then it's your customers. Of course, it's always your customers, but your first customers are your stakeholders, because they can greenlight it or not, right? They have to believe in it. And so that stakeholder X was big, but having the confidence to be able to bring that back. But so you can be the best designer in the world, but if you lack some of these areas, you can go a good ways, but you may not go too far. But if you come in and you may be a decent designer, and you have really great confidence and you can articulate that and you can work with stakeholders and you have all those soft skills that go along with that. In companies like that, you can go very far.
Can you share an instance where a setback or failure turned out to be a hidden opportunity?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's one that I've shared before, but I'll share it here again, just for those that may not have heard it. Yeah. So if I look back to the years of web design, that was probably one of the first times I really experienced that. And I think, I mean, there were things along the way, like, even though I won, an award for that film and won some other things, there were other times where I didn't win. So there's many moments of loss and, thinking I failed. Right. But I remember being a young creative director back in the late 90s. And it was my first foray into leading a large endeavor for a Flash website. So it was a big thing, a lot of money went involved, a lot of stuff on the line. And there was a whole team that I was directing. And when we got this done, I said before that it was like literally the most amazing website, like in my head, right? I mean, when you clicked, it hit animated and opened up and closed like Transformers. It had all these sound effects and, all this cool stuff. And it would, change colors and had all this motion and everything. And literally it was a true creative experience. I mean, you were going to get into that and you were like, man, I am engaged. In the United States at the time, there was no high-speed internet. So at that time, it was still pretty much dial up around the world. So it took 15 minutes to load that website. So I always say that it was the most amazing website that nobody ever saw. I put so much time into it, so much effort and so much heart and yeah, I mean, but taught me about UX, right? So like, we had to put up back then a splash page, you called it, right? So let people know, hey, hang out, give them a message, like go get a coffee, come back in 15 minutes. And there was like, we need to indicate that, the site's loading and all this stuff. So, that was, that was tough. That was really tough. Yeah. And then there was those moments where again, technology just wasn't up to the same ideas that we had, or I had. So it just took time. I remember doing one of the first TV commercials that I was doing, and I wanted to do it all animated. So me and our 3D animator, and we were working through this like night and day. And it's a 15-second commercial, it's full animation, all this stuff. And back then, if you wanted like dust and particles and all that kind of stuff, I mean, it was a crazy amount of render hours. And so it was like 15-hour renders and on 1 second of video.
Wow.
So we missed the deadline. So we didn't, we didn't make it in time. And it was supposed to go on all these different channels and stuff like that. But thankfully we were able to recover, get it all done, and it did air in all these different places. But yeah, it was the combination of technology not being where it needed to be, ideas being too big, and then realizing that, wait a minute, this, you can create some of the most amazing things in the world, but if people can't see it, or they can't experience it, or they can't use it, or they can't wait around to be able to open it, it's not going to be that great of an experience. So
you've touched on so many, I think, of these moments. So this might be a tough question for you, but I'm going to ask, if you could pick one moment that significantly influenced your path, what would it be?
Being able to see the result of something that I dreamed come to life, and watching people react to it in a positive way was pretty big. So I think one of the first moments like that was the film. Like I didn't mention this earlier, but the idea for the film came to me in a dream. I woke up and I was like weird, but I wrote it down the best I could remember from that dream that morning, and it came with everything, that the name, everything, and then I turned it into a treatment, then into a script, and with another friend that helped write it, and going from seeing that as a dream, which was extremely challenging, because I mean, at the time I remember wanting to crash a car in the lake, and that's where it was. So I was filming up in Oklahoma, and they said Oklahoma City gets their drinking water out of that lake. There's no way you can crash a car in that lake. And they said things like you have to have $1 million insurance policy, and you have to co-insure the city of Oklahoma and and the Oklahoma Water Board utilities or whatever. And you have to have the car gutted. And there are people tethered to the shore in wetsuits. You have to have environmental protection stuff or whatever and all that stuff. And I'm just a young filmmaker, right? So, but I told him, I said, listen, I need to film on this day because the moon is going to be at this lighting or whatever on this stuff on the water, and so I'm going to get back to you, but we're going to do it. And they're like, yeah, okay. So I finally somehow got everything lined up. It happened. We got even an insurance company to co-insure it because they said, this is crazy. What are you talking about? And they said, hey, look, we've never done this before. We're never going to do it again, but we're going to let you do it. And so we did it. And at the end of it, the insurance company said, hey, just wanted you to know that we can't, continue your coverage or whatever. And I was like, well, we're done filming. They're like, okay, well, you were, covered under that time, but now, I was like, well, we don't need it anymore. And they're like, yeah, no problem. We're going to give you back your money. So they gave me back my money. Yeah. Those are the moments when you look back and you say, wow,
Looking forward, what are you most excited about?
I think what I'm most excited about is the evolution of what humanity can become with the augmented abilities of AI. I think the world is heading with the technological breakthroughs. I think it's going to hopefully help kids like mine with autism and other areas, and I think that's what's most exciting, being able to see technology work for us and help us in new ways, in better ways. I think it's an interesting world as the future begins to materialize because, you might see a merging together of AI and human together. I think Henry Kissinger talks about this in his book Genesis. Before he died, he wrote with Eric Schmidt from Google, and he talks about going from Homo sapiens to a new race of humans called Homo technicus, which is the merging together of AI and human, and kind of like what I've been looking at called symbiotic intelligence. And that is very exciting, but it's also because I think it can help a lot of diseases and issues and things, and to help augment humans. But at the same time, a lot of people may not see it that way, right? They might be at the other side. But yeah, no. So I have a still optimistic view and a passion for the hustle of what can be next for AI and being a part of that. So,
I mean, I think this kind of dovetails into what I wanted to ask you in the next question, maybe a lot of similarities, but I was going to ask you, what do you think the future of design looks like?
It's hard to say, right, what exactly the future of design is going to look like. But here's a couple of my thoughts. I've talked about this before in different places, but I think we're going to begin to see design accelerate. I think we are going to see that as these agentic systems, as AI experiences start rising, companies and organizations are still going to realize that they still need UX. I talked about that earlier. UX is not dead. They still need UX. I was reading a post about that this AI prompt engineer was writing, and he wrote this incredible detailed thing around AI agents and everything. And he said, look, at the end of the day, this is still about what is the customer challenge, the customer problem, the user needs, right? It's still about humans at the center. This is still about people, right? And so I think design and UX practitioners and UX leaders in the world need to begin to declare that and show that. Say, hey, look, we're here. We are the ones that can help you with this new experience that's going to be created for people. And what's going to happen quickly, though, is that that's going to be fed into AI that will end up, learning and doing that as well. And so what I call then will become the rise of AX, which is kind of happening now, which is the artificial experience. I've been talking about it also as the agentic experience, but the which are two kind of different concepts. The artificial experience is kind of an evolution of where design is today. So today you have humans designing for humans based on what humans think humans need or want. But rising now is AI designing for humans on what AI thinks humans need or want. So you're starting to have artificial experiences that you won't know are artificial, but they were created or prompted by a human, perhaps, but they were delivered and generated by AI. And that generated concept is something that, unless you have transparency, which is going to be a big deal, or trust of what's out there, you won't know the difference.
So interesting.
Yeah.
What are some of the most important takeaways from your career journey that you think everyone should know?
I think I probably need to know a lot from what everybody else thinks out there in the world, and I'm still learning. But some of the things that have guided me is the true belief, maybe it's naive, that humans should be at the center of every experience. Humans should be at the forefront of everything that we do, especially with technology. And when I mean by that, it's not just doing research and learning what humans need, but also understanding the challenges that we all have, whether it's our health, whether it's our whether it's those with neurodiversity, whether it's and those actually are superpowers and gifts beyond any challenges that many times. Being able to tap into that, being able to deliver and design for that, to focus on areas where we can make a difference. And I think for me, if your passion and your hustle can be paired up with something that you do for good, then the reward is an incredible feeling, even though you may not see the results. When I was leading design MVP, we were reimagining energy for people and planet. So I believe that we were designing for generations to come when we may not even be here, right? But there was something good about it. And when I got a chance to join the Alliance, the Design for Good Alliance, that's something that really, resonated with me, was being able to truly, design for good. And so all along the way of my journey, the film was a positive message. The graphic design I was doing back in the day they weren't just raves for rave's sake. It was to get young people that were struggling in their life into a positive environment. And so all along the way, I think if I look back, and this is something that I'm just kind of talking out loud now, but I've said a little bit, but this is kind of I'm seeing it even more clearly, is that if what you do can also be something that you do for good, I think that's something that would be what I would say is a good takeaway.
For sure. I love that. Okay. So we're going to move into some closing questions here. What is your favorite quote?
Yeah. So I said this a lot in my, in my last years at this company. So anybody who hears this from when they worked with me, they're going to be like rolling their eyes because they heard this too many times. But the quote is, "Change is the only hope you have." When you think about that quote, it means a lot. But the funny thing was that that quote, how I got that quote, it came from my barber who was cutting my hair. And so he was like, "Hey dude, change is the only hope you have, man." And I was like, man, I'm either going to take that as, a really big insult or a slap in the face, or I'm going to write that down, because I was like, man, that's pretty good. Hope is, change is the only hope you have. And so, but when you think about it, really at the end of the day, everything that we're doing, everything that's been happening in technology and all the things that are about to take place, it's about immense change, and how we embrace that change, and how we, leverage it for the future is big. And I know people have said this a lot about change, and there's a lot of talk. And but I think, like when I think about, like, in design, what marks maturity in a designer or a design leader is how you receive feedback and how you respond to it and how you give feedback. It's the same thing about change. It's like how you receive the change and respond to it, and how you make the change. And some of the things I talked to you about in my story, I guess in my journey, I realized looking back, I was actually part of making the change. But it was because there was a lot of change coming at me and around me with technology, evolution, things evolving and stuff. And so I was embracing the change so that I could be the change.
There is a lot of content out there. What are you looking at, and what would you recommend to others?
Yeah. So I, have, been deep in a lot of the, I guess, articles that are coming out with all the new advances in AI. I've picked up some interesting reads, some interesting books. Like I mentioned, Genesis, which is the Henry Kissinger book. And just being able to allow myself to explore, the harder questions around what's to come, because that's been key. I think podcasts like this one, Ryan, being able to listen in on great insights and feedback and stories, it's been really good. And I think, yeah, I mean, just a lot of it comes from, the people around you, right? So there's constantly getting texts of like, hey, have you seen this? Like yesterday was like a flurry of stuff around, Sam Altman's announcement, so whoever watches this is going to be a little bit dated, but the rise of these AI agents and things has been quite interesting. So, we're, texting each other and sharing all this information rapidly in groups and in cohorts that I'm a part of. I think, a lot of that is finding the right people in your life to be able to share that with.
And lastly, where can people find you?
Sure. So they can find me on LinkedIn, of course. They could, find a little bit more about me at rohatgi.com, which has my LinkedIn with some other links there. It's not like a big website, but it has, some more ways to connect with me. And yeah, I would love to have anybody reach out and chat further on all this new world that we're stepping into, and even some of the past.
Awesome. Well, this was an amazing episode. I think you said so many things here that are just great takeaways, and I can't wait to get this episode out there. Thank you so much for taking time today.
Awesome, Brian. Thank you so much for having me.
That's it for today's episode. Let's keep the conversation going. Drop a comment with your thoughts, like this episode if it resonated with you, and share it with someone who might benefit. And don't forget to follow so you never miss an episode. Thanks for being part of this journey with us. Until next time.